Welcome back to Wilderness Attitude Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Waddell. We are back with part 2 of the Matt and Brooke Wright podcast, and we're about to get a total inside look into Naked and Afraid and the crazy adventures Matt had on his second journey on the show. And it is heartbreaking, empowering, and just a tribute to the dedication of his survivalist attitude, his wilderness attitude. And we had so much fun in this podcast going through the crazy adventures with him and Brooke and to where he is today that you're going to love it. This is by far my favorite podcast I've ever done. So enjoy. So did they contact you, or did you contact them? How does that work?
On that particular one, what I was doing is I think I was just getting back from a trip I went to Alaska on a self-guided hunt up there, and I get back, and all of a sudden I'm watching TV, and Brooke and I are watching, and I was Naked and Afraid comes on, and I'm watching it, and I was like, God damn it, they look miserable. You know, it's like they look like they're suffering, and I was like, Brooke, I want to get on this show. And it was like...
I told her, I was like, do it.
And you'd think she'd be like, why in the hell would you want to look like a war victim, you know, after all these days? Like, that's what some of the people come out, like, it's bad.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's the only way to really know myself right there, if I can go out there. But I was like...
Look, I'm Mr. Survival. I'm Mr. Survival.
And,
right?
and I kept telling her, I was like, I don't want to go out there and, like, come out looking like a war victim. I want to come out thriving.
I want to go show them how this is done.
So I literally... She was like, well, send him a... application. And I thought, I don't even know how to do that because I've never applied for anything for TV, So I just literally sent an email with Brooke's help. I worded it essentially in a way of like, hey, stop screwing around. If you're looking for Mr. Wright, right here. And just sent it. And I thought, probably never going to hear from him again. And all of a sudden, bleep, this girl contacts me back. You're on our radar. I was like, what the hell does that mean? Well, then before you know it, they're like, hey, send us a little bit of information about yourself. Sent it to him, and then she's like, "Bleep, can you come out to L.A. and get an interview?" And I was like,
it all happened pretty quickly.
And I was like, this is getting real fast.
Yep.
I was like, hell. So then I go to L.A. I get sequestered in my hotel room so that you're not allowed to leave at all. And and it was kind of funny because I got there at like 11 o'clock in the morning, and they didn't give me any kind of lunch. And all of a sudden, dinner time rolled, and they have me filling out like a psychological evaluation stuff and personal information stuff. But I haven't seen anybody. And I am starving in this hotel room, but I'm not allowed to leave. And the guy comes in at like 9 o'clock at night and gets all my paperwork I've been filling out, kind of stuck in there all day. And I was like, and he's like, how'd you like your dinner? And I was like, because I kept thinking this is testing for the show.
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
And I'm like, I'm not going to ask him for my food because I'm asking to go on a show that I'm going to have to be able to be hungry. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. I was like, you guys don't feed us. And he's like, no, you were actually supposed to get dinner. And I was like, seriously? And he's like, oh, crap.
Are you kidding me?
He's like, somebody actually forgot to bring you dinner. So he went out and got me dinner. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So then the next day I get the interview. And I tell him about that little bit of a story. And all the production they kind of laugh during that. I'm like, hey, if I can't be hungry and survive in my hotel room, I'm definitely not going to be able to, be out there.
Hungry, yeah.
And I get done, and they're just like, you're in our casting pool. And again, I've never applied for TV, so I was like, I don't even know what this is.
Right.
They're asking me to send them B-roll. I didn't even know what that was. and so I get home, and I was like, Brooke, I'm like on a casting pool. I'm like, I don't know. They said I could get a call tomorrow, could get a call 2 years from now. And I was like, who knows? And all of a sudden I get a call like 3 days later. Hey, can you go to Thailand for the whole month of, November? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not?
Okay.
I was like, does that mean I'm going to Thailand? Yeah. And I was like, shit, okay. I was like, this is happening.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, how do I prep to go butt naked and survive? Well, I've got to literally, walk barefoot and get myself like as much sun naked as I possibly can.
Right.
So Brooke was laughing at me quite often. I'd be out fishing somewhere. I was like, there's nobody around.
Trap.
naked. And she's just like, Jesus, we're going to get kicked out of this, state park.
So but in all seriousness, in your training, I mean, so okay, I get that. Barefoot, taking on sun. What else did you do? I mean, did you start strength training and just building mass?
What I figured I was needing was a little bit more body fat to help me if there was a problem getting food. Mm-hmm. So you want to have a little bit of body fat, and that is because you don't want to eat protein right away. So if you're eating protein off your muscles, it's gonna just adverse effects on your body. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna eat a bunch. I'm going to exercise in the way of survival. So that means I'm going out all day, trying not to use much water, and I'm going to be essentially like, how I would survive. So I would go literally barefoot, go bow fishing for like 8-9 hours of a day, and try not to drink any water, try not to eat food, and then get back, gorge too much food, but just kind of like how I would have to survive on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. I would do things like I'd take an arrow and I'd rub it in my hands like this in case I have to make a hand drill. I'm now building the calluses up for that, and just various things, chopping with my knife, getting those muscles all worked out so that they're not sore when they're out there. Mm-hmm. But for most part, a lot of that stuff I did quite regularly, like making primitive fire and things like that. So I just toughened the heck out of my feet as much as I could. And you realize as soon as you get on location, you're sitting there and I got out of this little, they put me in a sidecar of a little motorcycle, which I felt like I was the largest guy to ever go in that sidecar.
Yeah, you're a big dude
in Thailand. I mean, it felt like it actually got stuck 4 times that day because I kept driving through the mud and I had to get out and push our stupid sidecar motorcycle. But I get out and they don't give you they don't really talk to you on the show. Like they want it to be survival. So they're just like, okay, you're here. And I was like, okay. And they're just like, just strip down and head out. Well, then that is when your body's like, what? I want to live out here in this jungle, but I'm going to leave everything here. It defies like your survival.
Anything you've ever known your whole life.
And your whole mind is like, if you're going to survive, bring stuff with you. Have more stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it doesn't make any sense
to carry it.
To leave your stuff.
Yeah.
And then here I am. I just go butt naked and I just start walking out into the jungle, and I'm laughing. It's hilarious to me that who the hell would do this? I'm thinking like, I'm like, here I am doing it, but what the hell am I thinking?
Right.
And then as soon as you realize, like, it's kind of strange in a way, but you realize naked in front of people is not a big deal. The naked walking through waist-high thorn bushes is now a big deal. Right. The bugs trying to go at your junk has become an incredibly big deal. I had to climb down a rock face, and with clothes on, it feels like no big deal.
Right.
Naked, I'm like, oh, God, this is like Everest, Yeah.
I
was like, how am I going to get down that naked?
There's a lot more
I got to hold my
stomach
stomach
here now.
Yeah. And then I meet my partner for the first time, which is another hilarious moment because I'm walking through, all of a sudden I look up, and here's this girl standing on a rock swatting at bugs. She hasn't seen me yet. And I was like, okay, this is this random naked woman I'm about to meet. And the first time we meet, I walk up and I'm like, okay, do I give a hug? Do I not give a hug? I'm a hugger, but I don't know, like, is it a hug? No tug. And I was like, you know what? Big hug. I'm going to pick her up. That's what I'm going to be a big hug. I'm going to pick her up in the air, twirl her around maybe. And, her, not it around. And so I go up and I realize immediately she is a non-hugger of a person. So I'm like, quick handshake, right? And I'm like, hey, I'm Matt. And she's like, hey, I see your penis. And I looked at it and I was like, what? And first thing she said, before I even knew her name, she said, I see your penis. And I was like,
yeah,
yep.
We all knew this.
And then the producer looks over and he's like, separate now, meet each other again. Just say your names. Like, right. He was like, everybody was in shock. Like, why would you say that first thing? Why was that the first thing you said? And, but then all of a sudden it's like, it's like, now we have
ever explained to you why that?
Yeah, she just thought it was funny.
She's just trying to
break the ice. Exactly. And she was like she wasn't feeling very good, didn't really get in the zone while she was out there. But we've become friends, like literally cauterized in battle. Out there, I'm pretty sure everybody kind of becomes friends at some degree because you share something very unique. And so, we're still friends today. She came to our wedding.
That's cool.
And it was, that was like the first experience out there was just, it was wild and unique, but I felt like I didn't get enough danger. I didn't get enough excitement from it. So that's why I've always wanted to
do it again.
Where'd
you end up on that first season?
So this first Naked and Afraid, I went into South Thailand.
Right.
And so I was right near a town kind of called Trang, Thailand, and in the mountain forest that's there. And it's hard to tell what you actually expect when you're on those, to go do something like that. But for me, I expected all right, I knew there was going to be bugs. I knew there was going to be wild terrain of things I I've never seen before, like bushes. But what I didn't look at was how much rain it might have.
Right.
And I go to find out that after this 21 days in Thailand, that it actually rained on my location more than any show has ever had rain. It rained some 19 inches of rain in, 8 days, and it was just.
You were clean.
It literally for 19 for 21 days it rained 19 of those days, and most of those days was rain all day. So we were separated from the production crew. We were actually on our own for a few days. They couldn't get on our side of the river, and it was kind of a fun, it was kind of a funny moment in a way, but a very real moment.
Right.
Because I'm like, you know what? If I cut myself, if I get hurt, if I get, bit by a venomous snake at this point, then it's true survival. There is no rescue crew. There is nobody coming to give us some anti-venom. We would have to, we'd have to figure out our own survival at that point.
Right.
But at the end of that, I was like, you know what? I was like, I wanted more, for some reason, I wanted more danger. I wanted more excitement. I wanted to, test myself further. I felt like it was good, but I was like, I can do harder. I was like, it wasn't hard enough.
So did you envision harder from the shows you'd watched prior?
I envisioned harder from the way I've seen the shows, aired, I should say.
Right.
I envisioned I would be hungrier and just weaker. So when I got out of this one, I was strong enough. I did a push-up competition against a couple of camera guys when I got back to the hotel, and I felt way too much energy and way too strong to come out after 21 days, and for me that was a sign of success. I went out there and I ate well.
You wanted to thrive.
I mean, I ate.
Right.
I killed a monitor lizard. I got a whole bunch of other small lizards and skinks and a 7-foot snake and little fish and some big old fang toads, they're called. I ate probably 30 different animals during that 21 days, but there was no sugar, there was no starch. It was so you're still kind of hungry, but according to the the standards of the show, I was eating a lot. And I came out and I felt great. My partner had actually been sick for most of that time, but she kind of got out of her funk and she started feeling better at the end. And I was like, I'm hooked, because I was like, it was like I refer to it now as a beautiful suffering. And it's something that you will never do to yourself, because yourself is too smart. You're not going to go out and say, you know what, for 21 days, I'm going to go hang out in the backwoods of Littleton, or, somewhere by Durango. I'm going to go hang out there for 21 days. You're going to be like, you know what, I'll bring boots. And then if you're going to bring boots, you're going to bring pants. If you're going to bring before you know it, you have stuff. And the beauty behind Naked and Afraid is that it makes you leave everything behind.
Now, was it warm? I mean, most of the time they take you places where it's reasonably.
So it's in Thailand. It should have been warm. We're entering.
But it rained all the time.
We're entering the kind of the hot season, but because this kind of cold front came in, temperatures during the day were around 80 at the max. Sometimes hotter, but on average by about 80. But nighttime lows got down into about upper 50s,
So that's
which is chilly when it's wet.
cool. Yeah.
And And, you know, we were just kind of hunkered down, and here I am having to cuddle up next to some girl that I've never met before. Find out she doesn't really like to cuddle. She doesn't want to be cuddled. She'll grab my arm and cuddle my arm, but I can't just cuddle her. And meanwhile, Brooke told me, she's like, do whatever you got to do to survive. She's like, I'm not going to be weirded out if you're cuddling next to some random naked girl. That's the part of the show, like survival, like do what you got to do. And so it was chilly, not anything insane. It just rained a lot.
Right.
So after it was all done and said and done, I literally went to the production that night, and I was like, hey,
sign me up.
Like, let me do another one. And they were talking, they got to talking, they were like, there's another one being filmed in 3 days, you know, on the beach location here in Thailand. And I was like, if that guy doesn't show up, send me in. And they're like, you would go back in after spending 21 days? And I was like, oh, hell yeah. Put me back over there for 21 days. I was like, I'm ready. And they were just looking at me like,
crazy.
They're like, what the hell would you want to do that for? And I was like, I need longer. Well, at the time, there was no XL Naked and Afraid. So
what does the XL stand for?
And the XL just extra long.
Extra long.
Yeah.
Okay.
The show. The
yeah,
time
so it's 40 days instead of 20.
Yeah.
Well, oh, you're bad.
But yeah, so instead of 21 days, it's 40 days.
Right.
And so I'm telling them, I'm like, I need to stay longer. Well, then before long, they're like, hey, you know what? There's a show called XL that we're coming up with. It's going to be 40 days long. You will be doing one of those. And I was like, okay. So I was like, I kept telling them, like, as soon as you find a hard enough location that you can send me there. Because I was like, I don't want an easy one. I was like, I want something tough. And they were like, okay. They kind of laughed, and I was like, no, I'm serious. I was like, if it was easy, I'm going to be upset, because I was like, I want difficult. I want to, like, you know, really feel like I had a rough time.
Well, this seems like a good partnership at this point with you and Naked and Afraid, because they need you in a way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But you're asking them to feed you.
Oh yeah.
With what their whole methodology is.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I mean, you're like a gem in the rough. I mean, who would not want what you're saying you want? I mean, and so then I'm sure there's some producer going, "Oh yeah, asshole."
Yeah,
we're gonna give it to you.
Yeah,
right?
we're gonna find a right spot for this guy.
Yeah, we're gonna sink your boat.
And so I had to wait a little bit, all of a sudden they came up and they're like, "Hey, you're gonna do this next XL," and I was like, "Oh hell yeah!" It's like I told him, anytime you ever call me, I will do it. And they're like, "Okay, we found a good spot for you. This one's gonna be good. It should be full of a lot of danger." And I was like, "Oh, perfect." I was like, "Now we're talking." So
now, how long in between the Thailand and this one?
So it took about 1.5 years for my Thailand episode to air after I filmed it.
Oh wow!
And so I had to wait for it to air, and then as soon as it aired, it was only a few months later
then you were a candidate for.
Yep. Then I was going to the XL, and it was kind of funny watching it air, because at this point, I mean, it was so long ago. And I was like, man, remember that? That's what I looked like when I was younger, you know. It was like 1.5 years later. It seemed so long since I've been out there. But they told me, and they're like, okay, what do you think about the Amazon? And I was like, there's been 2 places I've always wanted to go since I was a little kid. And that's Africa and the Amazon. So I was like, you just made my dream come true. Mm-hmm. And they're like, but about, Amazon 40 days long. And I was like, exactly, my dream come true. And I was like, I've wanted to go in the Amazon and hunt fish and hunt the wild pigs naked like a native. And so I was like, this is literally this is the bucket list,
Right.
And that bucket list, I wanted to get an arapaima, which is largest freshwater fish, and I wanted to get a jungle pig with a primitive bow. So
you're going where that's possible. And so you almost had your own script written before you even hit the sand.
And, I kept telling them, for me, it's not about getting on the TV part. It's not about trying to
what sort of with that.
It's for me, it's like that, submersing in nature. It's that finding that beautiful epic moments. So I was like, I'm going to find them. They're out there. I'm going to hunt them down. and I'm going to hunt down that epic moment, and I'm going to find it. So on the XL, you're allowed to bring a knife or a blade of some sort, but then you're also allowed an extra item because now you got 40 days long. So for my extra item, I decided on a bow, and I made a primitive bow, primitive longbow, and brought some arrows. And I was like, those are the two things I need. And I was like, you give me those two things, and I was like, we're going to eat well. Well, on the XL shows prior, there's been 2 other ones. Somebody has brought a bow every time. So when I told them, I was like, you let me bring a bow, I will harvest a big game animal. And they were like, heard that before. They said that in Colombia. They said that in Africa. Nobody's ever killed a big game animal in the show regular Naked and Afraid or the XL history. And I was like, well, that's their fault, you know. And,
Right.
And I was like, I know that I've trained my entire life to not just like survive out there. I want to be able to literally have food and thrive.
Right. Why didn't you bring an atlatl?
So the atlatl I figured I can make. Now atlatl's a lot easier to make than the actual bow because bow takes so long to age in the wood.
Gotcha.
And so as we get into the Amazon, and everybody's in groups of 3s. So I'm in a group of 3. I'm with 2 other guys. Some other groups may have had,
Female,
1 girl, 2 guys, or all 3 girls. Well, I get out there and one of my partners brought a cast net, one of them brought a fire starter, and I thought, this is perfect. Well, I immediately realized that the guy who brought the cast net didn't know how to throw a cast net very good. Which he learned a little bit more on how to do it, but luckily I'd thrown a cast net just living near the water and saltwater fishing.
Right.
But I was like, all right, well, this bow is gonna have to get it done. And on day 6 is when I harvested this guy.
That is impressive.
And this is it's a white-lipped peccary, close to our collared peccary, like we would call a javelina.
Right.
The white-lipped peccary is a native species to the Amazon and Americas, as well as the collared peccary. Different than a pig that we normally know as a pig, and that is that these fangs, these tusks, don't come outside the cheeks, outside the lips like a normal pig.
Okay.
They come and interlock in each other, so you don't see them. When they're walking around, you don't see them.
They just look like a pig.
And they just look like a pig. And this was the very first big game animal ever harvested on Naked and Afraid in Naked and Afraid history. And that particular day was, without a doubt, one of the most epic, amazing hunts I've ever had in my entire life. And that is, I headed out on my own, no camera crew, no sound guy, nothing. It was me, a GoPro on my head, my bow. And I headed out, and I'm walking through the Amazon jungle. And I will tell you now that of all the places that you want to walk around butt naked, Amazon is intimidating as hell. I mean, there's venomous snakes, there's venomous spiders, there's a thing called, they call them a spiny lobster, but it's a gigantic locust cricket thing about 6 inches long. It tastes like peanut butter. It's actually pretty good. But
okay,
they're just like the bugs out there, insane.
Yeah, and I don't like bugs.
So you're walking
kill
through,
you.
and I'm like, so I get about, I don't know, maybe a quarter mile from camp, and I'm not gonna lie, my instincts told me, "What are you doing? Why are you going this far? Don't go any further."
Right.
You don't want to get lost. If I was lost, I was by myself. This is a microphone on the show when you see this necklace.
Gotcha.
It is not a GPS. There is no GPS on me. I have no radio. If I got lost, I was lost. Lost. If I got hurt, I was hurt without medical attention. And so I was like, so I stopped there, and I'm sitting, and I'm like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to hang out here for a minute. I was like, I don't know if I should go further. And all of a sudden, I hear the howler monkeys. And these howler monkeys are oddly enough, they would sound like, well, this group of howler monkeys sounds like a bunch of Spartan warriors in the distance, like chanting me on. And
right.
I'm like, hell yeah. And I was like, that's it. I was like, I just right then kind of felt like the heartbeat of the jungle right then.
Settled into
and I was
the
like,
wilderness. And
let's go time.
Yep.
And I head out, and before you know it, I'm walking all day. And finally, I've been just behind these pigs. I've seen their tracks. I've seen their scat. I'm close. I'm smelling them, but I'm not seeing them. And I hear a splash. And I was like, that's not a fish. And And I keep listening, and I realize I hear another one. And there's something wallowing in the water. And I was like, oh. So I checked the wind, and I was like, okay, check the wind. I get downwind. I cover myself in mud. I cover myself in a plant that had real mentholyptus smell to it that kind of masked my human scent. And I start sneaking from downwind. And as I'm sneaking, and I realize I'm about 70, 80 yards away from this wallowing noise. And I take the GoPro off my head. I look at it, and I was like, battery's dead. So I was like, okay, get a new battery, snap it in there. Well, when I snap the GoPro housing shut, it goes snap. And all of a sudden, like the creepiest echo you've ever heard in your life, it goes snap, and I hear snap, 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 snap. And I was like, and I realize all these peccary, all these pigs out there, they're clacking their jaws because they just heard a noise that they don't like. They're very territorial, and they consider the locals consider them one of the most dangerous animals in the Amazon. And I'm hearing, I'm like, but it's so many. And I was like, what the hell? I go to find out there's 50 to 100 peccary in this herd.
What?
And so I'm like, my ears are like, what am I hearing? Because it's like clack, 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 clack. And I was like, all of a sudden, out of nowhere comes a boar, comes blowing through this bush, and all I have time for is blah, like shit. And I raise my bow up in the air, and he runs, and I was like, fuck. So I step back about 4 or 5 steps, and I get an arrow out, and I'm sitting there, and I'm hoping the rest of that herd's going to charge,
come right where
turn where he went. I was hoping, because I've been watching them the couple days before that when I've seen the pig, and that's what they've done. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, here they come, and it's like hold my ground without moving and to get ready to take a shot, hoping they're going to turn. Because that is, I mean to tell you, when you're naked, you want to climb a tree real bad.
Right.
And although you don't want to climb a tree because you're naked. But and they're coming up, and I'm holding my ground, and sure as hell they're turning. And about 10 feet to 15 feet in front of me, they're taking a hard left turn to my right. And I'm like, pig, 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 piglet, piglet, pig, pig. I was like, Jesus, there's one after another. And I finally find one that's a good size one that is that's not running as fast.
Right.
And I swing on it, shoot. I watch the arrow zip through, and it runs off. It didn't make a noise, anything. I thought, well, hell, I'm going to get another arrow out. So I get another arrow out, and I start moving to get a better angle on their shot, on the shot placement.
I
don't know if a jaguar is going to eat that pig before I get to it. So for me, I'm like, I better shoot a second one just to make sure I have something. And if worst case scenario, I have 2 pigs.
Right.
So I move a little bit, and all of a sudden, the worst feeling any primitive archer can ever have, and that is the string going slack on my bow. And I realized this piece of razor grass just cut my bowstring.
Oh.
And all of a sudden, my bow turned into a stick.
Yeah.
Literally, a long bow with no string is a stick. And I was like, okay, I am now a tree. So I'm just like, I'm going to just not move and hope that they don't see me.
Right.
And so I was like, I'm a tree. And they're running up, and I'm like, whew, whew. And I was like, okay. They're all run through, and I was like, they're circling. Like about 40 yards away, they're circling on the blood from the one. Mm-hmm. Circling with all their heads pointed out, like pissed. They're ready to jack something up. And I was just like, whew. And eventually I'll walk off. And I was like, oh, whew.
That's crazy.
So then I'm like, where is the end of my bowstring? Because at this point, I'm like, I need to tie it on. I need to have a bow at some degree ready here. And I'm looking for the end, and I hear, ugh. And I was like, oh. And it felt like any movie where you're like, where that gripping moment is over, only to find out that you're just now in some shit.
Right.
And I looked to the left of me, and I was like, oh. And this boar is coming through. He's all scarred up. You could tell it's a boar. And my wind is going straight to him. All the other pigs never smelled me, but he is following me from downwind.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And I realized that he's got his nose in the air, and he's looking for me specifically. And it's not like he smells a human and is taken off. He's looking for me. And I was like, oh. So I look around. I'm like, okay, what tree can I climb? Because I'm not too proud to climb a tree.
It's on.
So I look behind me. The tree's like 7 foot in diameter, too big to climb. I looked at the other tree. It's full of 3-inch to 4-inch long thorns. Naked dude, impossible. And then I looked to the other tree, and it's covered in moss, slippery as hell. And I was like, shit. And anything else is too
screwed.
small. And so I was like, shit. And I was like, okay, maybe he'll just walk by. And he gets to about 30 yards, and he charges. And at this point I'm like, ah! And I just hold my bow and an arrow out, and I yell at him. And he stops at about 10, 15 feet away. And I was like, oh. And I look at my bow, and I was like, shit, it's not a bow, it's a stick. So I'd lay it against the tree, the big tree. I'd take my knife out and an arrow with a broadhead, and I look at him, and I'm thinking, this is it. This is that moment that
this is what I signed up for.
That every guy kind of wants. It's like to fight the beast, you and me, let's do that. And I thought, nobody wants to do this naked. Nobody has this fantasy of fighting the beast butt naked.
Nope.
It's a horrible thought of doing it naked. So I was like, shit. I was like, but here it is. Like, this is it. This is the moment. Like, it's him and I. And so at that time, I felt somewhat secure because I got this mossy tree between us. Felt like I'm going to stick him around the tree. I have something.
He's going to go one way. I'm going to go the other. I'm
He
going to get him.
looks at me, and like a bully, he walks to the side, all strutting himself like around. And now he goes to where there is no tree between him and I, except for one giant tree behind me. So now I can't even go backwards. And there's a thorny tree to my side. I can't go that way. And I was like, oh, shit. I was like, okay, and I'm watching him breathe. I'm watching him blink. And I can hear him breathing. And I was like, okay, as soon as he makes a move, I'm going to jump out as fast as I can. I'm going to stick him, cut him, slash him.
Go crazy.
It's going to go wild. I don't want to lose.
Right.
And at this point, this is what they look like. I mean, one bite could sever an artery, and I could bleed to death out there
Absolutely.
on my own, no problem. Well, I was like, here it is. So as I realize he pauses his breath and he's ready to charge, I just lunge forward with everything I've got, and that is when I yelled in some crazy bear roar of a sound, louder than I've ever done anything in my entire life.
Right.
I startled myself because that was so damn loud. I startled the pig. He jumped back, and he looked at me like, what in the hell is that?
Right.
And I'm sitting there, and he's looking at me, and he walks off a little bit, and he looks at me again. And there's a good chance that he's never seen a human because humans in the Amazon go on boats downriver. Like, they don't walk in the woods often.
Covered in mud and minty shit.
He keeps looking at me, and I could tell he is analyzing, like, I don't know what that is, but I'm not going to screw around with that thing. Whatever that damn white, crazy-ass mud-covered creature is, that has no hair,
right.
I'm going to avoid that. And he walks off, and I thought, I'm like, okay. Well, that is when I realized, after that adrenaline rush has kind of gone down, I took a little bit of the cordage I can get off my bowstring. I end up tying a knot, and I end up making the bowstring work. And I realized I have not swat a bug for like 40 minutes, which is bad. If you're in the Amazon and you have not swatted a bug, I looked at myself, and I am covered in mosquitoes. I have my own hair looking like soot, and it's all just mosquito soot. And I smashed them on my arm, and I'm like just red blood covered on my arm because there's so many. And I was like, oh. And I was like, okay. All right. I got to give it some time. And I was like, I'm going to go track down the pig I shot.
Right.
And I walk up, and I see my arrow. It's covered in blood. I pick it up. It's got a beautiful smell of just fresh blood. It doesn't have any gut smell.
Yeah.
And I was like, everything I've ever learned in my life, every hunt I've ever done
tells me this pig is dead.
It felt so familiar to me. Mm. And so I start walking, and I realize everywhere there's blood that I'm tracking like you would at home is now full of fire ants, wasps, and every biting insect, including scorpions and everything. And I was like, so I'd walk about 10 steps down the blood trail, and I'd have about 50 to 100 fire ants and different other creatures biting me. And I'm like, oh. So I step off the trail, and I'm like, and I can't make any noise because the damn pigs are still out there. I don't want them to charge me again. And so I'm by myself just like losing my shit. And I'm just like, okay, back on the blood trail. And I'd walk a little bit further, and I'm like, oh, God. Get back off the blood trail. And I was like, well, that was about 80 yards at max. Was like the longest 80 yards of my life.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden I enter what's called black palm forest, and it looks like they grow like willows or aspen trees, but they're covered in 3 to 4 inches of these very brittle, super sharp thorns.
Okay.
And it is no place for a naked person. bad place for a clothes
It's not
person.
good for anything.
And I was like, oh, if that pig died in this forest, this is bad. And I walk about 10 steps in, and I was like, this is horrible. If the pig chased me now, I can't climb any tree. I can't do anything because
no evasive maneuvers allowed here.
So luckily that the blood trail veers to the right and goes back out. And I come back out, and here it is. There's this guy laying there, and at that moment I was like, it felt again like a most normal
Familiar
experience, so familiar to me. Even though I was butt naked in an area I've never been, shot an animal I've never seen up close until that day, and I was like, okay. I was like, this is what I'm here. This is what I've trained for my entire life, like. And I get there, and I sit there, and I'm thinking Mother Nature for giving me this bounty, for providing me with this, with this pig, and then right before I left, Brooke, had told me, hey, I can't come down to Amazon with you, but if you can, shoot a pig for me. So
sweet.
So I'm there, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, you know what? I just got a pig, and I was like, I know it's the first big game animal ever taken in the show's history, which is a big deal. But for me, I was like, I just got a pig, and Brooke told me to shoot a pig for her. I was like, yeah. So I was like, Brooke, I want to dedicate this pig to you. And I was like, and then I just got hit with this giant this emotions, and I am now by myself, butt naked, next to a dead pig, crying my eyes out, and with all this emotion. And I look at the camera, and I'm thinking, I should turn that off. Like, I should not let people see this.
That is what you'll be remembered for.
So I was like, you know what, screw it. I was like, I'm giving it to y'all. I'm giving it all. And I dedicate that pig to Brooke. And I just have this wild emotions that I felt that same emotions when I was a little kid. Right. And I shot that elk. That same elk I was telling you, I took a bite out of its heart. Well, at that moment, I cried. Right. As a 12-year-old kid, I didn't know what else to do. And I cried, and I felt ashamed. And my dad's like, never feel ashamed. He's like, that passion, what you're feeling right there. He's like, that, you got to harness that passion. He's like, if something's going to make you want to cry because you're so passionate about it, that's what you want to do for the rest of your life. Well, here I am in the jungle, and my dad's words are still ringing in my ears of, let those emotions out because that's the passion. That's why you're here.
Right.
And I was like,
you just did some of the most manly shit,
yeah.
right? Yeah. But yet you let your vulnerable, passionate side come out, and that's what people want. They want real people, real
raw
stuff,
emotion.
raw emotion. That was not scripted. No. You didn't have a crew with you. The producers didn't tell you to. Yeah. You told the producers you were going to, and you gave it, right?
And out there in the middle of the Amazon jungle, butt naked by myself,
exactly.
I wept like a little baby. And then I sat there and I was like, all right, that was fantastic. Now the rest of the work has begun.
Now the work begins.
And it weighed it's about 80 pounds or so. Mm-hmm. And I looked at it. Every spot of blood had wasps and fire ants on it, among other things. So I thought, I'm not going to gut it. I was like, if I gut it here, that means I got to walk a mile and a half back with blood coming down my back. And so I packed its hole, the entrance and exit hole, with dirt, packed it, and just took it, and threw it over my shoulder. And about 80 pounds, I'm carrying it, and I'm like, okay, it's like
8 pounds. It's kind of heavy.
It's like, this is getting a little tiring. And as I'm walking, there was a frog out there that you'd hear every day, and hilarious. And anybody who's ever gone to the Amazon will crack up to the thought process of it. But it's like the Budweiser frogs have gone rogue. But you hear these frogs out there in a hollow of a log, and they're like, hey. And then you'll hear another one say, you. Or they'll be just like, yo. And then it'll be like, you. And hilarious, right? And all night, it's kind of like this funny game of like hearing these frogs. So I'm walking, and all of a sudden I hear, Matt. And I was like, that frog sounded like it said my name, I thought, because I've been walking now 45 minutes. I've been by myself all day. And I just like, man, this frog just said my name. And I was like, I keep walking. All of a sudden I hear again, Matt. And I was like, damn it, I'm going to have to film this frog because the stupid frog's saying my name. I was like, how funny is that? So I thought I'm just going to, just for shits, I'm going to say what's up to that frog. And I was like, what's up? And all of a sudden it's like, where are you at? And I was like, what? I I was like, what? I'm looking over there, and I'm like, hello? And I'm thinking I'm talking to a frog. You know, I'm like, I might,
You're losing your
too
mind.
many bug bites or something. I'm losing,
Yeah.
maybe, no way did I hear just something say, what's up?
Right.
Or, where you at? And all of a sudden I hear it again, Matt, where you at? And I was like, that's a human. And I was like, what the hell? So I stood there for a minute, and all of a sudden the cameraman, everybody's been looking for me because I've been gone longer than they expected now at this point. So they're on like a little scavenger hunt looking through the jungle to try to find me. Camera guy stumbles upon me, and I'm just holding a pig. And he expected I would be like half dead and like maybe just find a body,
Right.
They were worried about me. And he gets on the microphone and goes, I found Matt. Well, the way he made it sound like Matt's dead,
Right.
And so I could hear his earpiece, and because they don't really talk to you, they don't really help you out in any way. They're just there to film it. And I hear his earpiece. Oh my God, what is it? What happened? And I'm like, and he's like, Matt's real good. Matt's real good. And then the guy on the other end of the earpiece was like, why are you saying it like that? Like, what a weird way to say it. But he didn't want to say it over the radio to the producer that I just got a pig. He was going to let that just roll out,
yeah.
So then it's kind of funny because then you got a camera guy that's just following me around, and I was like, there's no help to me. Like, I've been carrying this thing for a while. Like, the least you could do is ask if you can carry my pig,
Right.
I was like, now you're just filming me and not even asking. Anybody else would say, like, hey, can you get
Yeah,
can
back
I help
where
you?
I come from.
Anybody else would be like, hey, so I'm like, so he's just like a jungle creature following me at this point. So I'm walking, all of a sudden I get to the whole, the producer, and he had local guides with him. And they are so ecstatic to see me, like, that I'm healthy and that I have a pig, that they're all giving me hugs. And I was like, guys, I just got emotional back there a little bit, and now I'm naked, and these dudes are hugging me. I was like, let's focus on this manly stuff I did, And
Right.
and so we're sitting there, and the one local guy is trying to tell me in English. He's like, and he's trying to tell me something. I'm like, what is he saying? And the translator that was sitting right there, he's like, the local guy's trying to tell you that this is very difficult. He's very proud of you. And I was like, yeah, it was pretty tricky. He's like, no. And the guy's like upset. He's like, no, this is difficult. We use shotgun. We use shotguns. Very difficult with shotguns. And I was like, I didn't have a shotgun. I was
Right.
like, shotgun would have been nice.
Yeah, right.
And, but the locals were just like, oh my God, this guy's living like our ancestors.
Yeah.
And they haven't lived like their ancestors for a long time.
Right.
And I get back, my partner, who was just one partner at the left at the time, I show up, and no one's ever killed a big game animal in a show. So he never expected me to come back with anything.
No,
And I show up, and the look on his face is just like that's not really happening.
right.
Where did you get a pig,
Right.
And I threw it down, and he was just like in shock. He was just like,
Yeah, I bet.
what? And then he had never seen a big game animal. This is the first big game animal he's ever seen dead. So when we go to skin it was hilarious because everybody will remember their very first time they've ever skinned a big game animal.
Right.
And they were seeing it done. It's like, and some people will think it's gross. Some people think it's awesome. Some people won't be able to hold their gut. Well,
Yeah.
old Russell's out there, and he's like, whew. He's like, I have a heightened sense of smell. And so it's making me kind of have a gag reflex. And I was like, what you have is a city boy's gut that's just never smelled that before.
Yeah.
And he's like, whoa.
That's funny.
And I was like, trust me. I was like, you won't care what that smell is
once you're chowing.
as soon as you're eating. And this thing, this pig lasted us 6 days of making jerky and this pot meat, and it was incredible. It was just one of those. It was the hunt, but it was the hunt for your own survival.
Yeah.
And it was, to this day, it was just that. It was so powerful.
I can say that I hunt to give meat to my family, but it's not the same. Because I can still stop by the store on the way home if I don't want to eat some milk meat.
They were like, I was unsuccessful today, but here's King Supers.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was, without a doubt,
you were kicking
just
ass on that show.
right?
You just accomplished some stuff that no one had ever done. And then the next thing you know, you're it's coming to a screeching
man.
halt on you.
And I would have bet everything, that by 40 days in, I would have felt strong. I would have been like charging, it would have been no problem. I had started to figure out that heartbeat of that place. I started to figure out I can live here inevitably.
I mean,
and it was a beautiful feeling knowing that I know personally I was like, no problem without it. 40 days, 400 days, I could live here forever. And, except I miss Brooke too much. And,
Thanks.
yeah.
But so all of a sudden, I've been out there hunting. I get back and I'm standing there in a shelter, and I'm actually talking about some of the hunting stories with some of the other survivalists that night.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, God, my foot is kind of burning. And there was a lot of thorns. I mean, I got thorns I was picking out of my feet almost every single day by the dozens. I mean, there was bad thorns. And I was like, it's just like, and I had bit by a scorpion that, stung by a scorpion earlier, about 10 days before that. And I thought, it's not a scorpion sting. I was like, that was more of a throbbing pain. This is just the pot burning pain. And it was that night, the whole night, I had a hard time even sleeping because I was like, damn it freaking burns. And why does it burn? It just keeps getting worse. Mm-hmm. By morning, I look at it, and I was like, still can't really see much. My feet are dirty as hell, mind you.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know. And I'm walking weird. And so one of the other survivalists was like, hey, we need to get a medic up here. Like, Matt's not complaining about pain often. And all of a sudden, now he's got some pain. Something's going on. And the medic comes up, and she is very distraught, very upset about it. And we don't really know what it is yet. But that's when she tested it, sent it off to a lab. I spent the next 2 days watching my skin kind of deteriorate and start falling off. And it would kind of bubble up. And I was like, what is that? I was like, I've had a burn before, but it got worse. When you burned it, then it gets better. It heals.
Right.
This is going reverse healing. This is just like
falling apart.
My foot's wanting to rot off, and there's
Right.
nothing I can do to stop it. And when the test results came back is when I found out I had a very rare, incredible, aggressive flesh-eating bacteria. And
Now, you told me earlier that the chances of hitting Powerball,
they told me it would be like hitting Powerball twice.
the chances of getting this.
The chances of getting this. It's
and you can get it anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world you can get it. It's this particular flesh-eating bacteria, which is a lot of flesh-eating bacteria in the world, different strands. This one grows in the no oxygen in the sediment of underwater. Okay. Is bred some by fish. Is how that somewhere along fish where it starts. So you can get it here in Colorado in one of our rivers. A girl in Salida lost her leg after getting it. You could get it in the Mississippi River. You can get it in
the Amazon
and people have actually got it in their own fish tanks in their house, reaching in to clean a fish tank, cutting their finger on a piece of fake coral, and having it get into their hand that way.
Wow.
It's scary.
It's the bizarre, but what it does is that if it does get into your body, it essentially mimics your own DNA and becomes yours, becomes your true alien creature. And because of that,
Monsters inside me.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because it kind of becomes your special breed. You can't really, it's not contagious. You're not giving it to somebody else, but it will it tries to get away from oxygen. So what it does to get away from oxygen is eat your flesh and goes further in and further in and goes very, very fast. And there's only one of our main 4 antibiotics that it will even remotely stop it. And you have to give it a lot of that and the right kind. Otherwise, it will continue to grow. You will lose your leg. You will lose your life if it gets in your bloodstream. It becomes, an end sentence if you don't treat it right. And for me, luckily, very luckily, they tested it first. They gave me all the antibiotics while I was out there. Every antibiotic known to the medical world, they were giving me in the jungle. And they were like,
and you said just straight veining it.
Oh,
I mean, they were just hammering it into your body.
Just hammering it right into my body. And I was taking oral medication as well as intravenous.
Because some people don't respond to one or the other or whatever, too, right?
And I'm taking all 4 of the main antibiotics in a large scale. And they were like, your chances of a, what they say, of essentially of a side effect your side effect is less than the risk of not giving it to you.
Right. I was
So-
going to ask you that. Is there a side effect now from being hammered with all these antibiotics? I
So-
mean, now are you...
Well, while I was out there, the main thing was all of a sudden you need food because your stomach is just now like in a knot. And unfortunately, Russell, who brought the cast net, was not real good at throwing a cast net. So now when I needed food the most, for the first time since I had been there,
You had to rely on
I
someone
am now
else.
hungry and no one else can get me food that day. And I was like, oh man, it's a bad day to be hungry.
No
'Cause
doubt.
I got like a lot of medicine in my system. And it was just kind of, it was crazy. But what it ended up doing is all that, I ended up getting, as soon as that results came through, they rushed me to a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent 7 days in a third world country hospital, hooked up to a machine, getting pumped full of antibiotics by the freaking dozens. And hilariously, and I say this kind of, it was hilarious, my first meal comes in. Now, this is the first meal in 20 days that I have not had to harvest and cook myself. So, all of a sudden it comes through the door, smells good, comes in, and is set right in front of me on my little hospital bed, and it's chicken feet soup. It is literally chicken noodle soup. Hold the chicken meat, just put chicken feet and no noodles. It's broth and chicken feet. And I look at it and I start laughing. I look at the door and I thought, that somebody is trying to be funny and bring up my spirits by giving me what looks like decomposing feet for the guy who's got decomposing feet. I was like,
The irony was not lost.
I was like, how funny is this, right? So I kept looking to the door, and I'm like, somebody's coming through any minute.
Someone's bringing me a
And,
steak.
and that is hilarious, but they're going to give me some real food, you know?
Right.
And I keep looking at the door. I realize that as my food's getting cold, no one's coming.
Right.
So I thought, well, okay, it's a stupid joke if you're not going to be there to, like, see it, you know?
Right.
So I eat my chicken feet, and I'm at this point, I'm like, I'm just eating the gelatinous stuff. I'm still pretty hungry at this point. I eat everything. I drink all the fluids, and well, all of a sudden dinner comes up, and I was like, all right, dinner time. And my hospital, it was just typical third world country hospital. You hear screaming and random noises, and they would come in and like pour water on my foot and just let it go onto the floor with the flesh and bacteria. And I was like, oh, now my flesh and bacteria is all on the floor. It was like, I mean, it was exactly what you kind of visualize
Wow.
a third world country hospital might be. And I could smell the food, and I was like, oh man, dinner's coming. Chicken feet soup again. And I was like, all right.
It's enough of this.
All right, now somebody's being funny again, but, you know, they didn't see my reaction last time, so they want to see it this time. No one's coming. Well, I realized for 7 days, every meal would be chicken feet soup.
Wow.
And
Really?
I don't know if it was Ecuador saying, you know what, this guy's got decaying feet. Let's give him feet. That's to help his feet. I don't really, or it was just like what they serve everybody.
He may die. We're not going to give him the good stuff.
Right.
So it was interesting. But I lost more weight in the hospital than I was losing in the jungle because I was eating actually very well in the jungle.
Right.
But one side effect of that whole thing was when I got home after 7 days of antibiotics in the jungle or in the hospital, the multiple days in the jungle, about a week or so of antibiotics when I got home, all of a sudden, maybe 2 weeks later or something, my whole body turns into a rash. And I was like, whoa, I am itchy. I was like, and I don't know what kind of funk I just brought back from the Amazon.
You just killed off all the good bacteria in your system.
Who knows what the hell kind of weird parasite I might have just picked up, you know. Mm-hmm. And I'm itchy, so I'm buying every itch cream, trying it on different parts of my body, hoping something's going to work. And what I realized was it was my liver and my kidneys were damaged from all the antibiotics, and they weren't processing the foods. So now I had no regular good, you know, good stuff left in my body. And my whole body would go into this massive rash every time I ate something. And I had to literally probiotics like crazy. I'm just like chugging yogurts and everything else I could. And then eventually a couple weeks later, liver started healing itself. But I was like, all right.
You would have finished that.
Oh, without a doubt, it was.
You would have finished Naked and Afraid XL.
Yep.
And you would have. Is there a winner?
You win just by making it. That's crazy show. Just concept-wise is you don't win any money. There's no, like, you don't make money on the show. So you're, like, there because you want to survive.
You're there to do it for you.
And for me, I invested my heart and my soul into it. And for me, it was emotional to leave because I was leaving a bunch of people who I know needed my help, and it was leaving something unfinished.
Yeah,
and
you wanted more. You didn't get to finish it.
Yeah,
and so
I've been literally fighting for redemption ever since, because it is so emotional to do that and have to leave.
Yeah.
That I was like, I told production literally in the boat ride on the way to the hospital, I was like, I want redemption. And they're like, let's worry about you not losing your foot for right now.
Yeah, we're just going to keep you from
and I was
dying
like,
on our show.
Yeah, but you guys need to let everybody know that as soon as I fix this, if they just want to throw me back out, I should be good.
Right.
And I was telling them, I'm like, as soon as I get out of the hospital, throw me back out there. I'll spend a week longer than everybody else. I'll extract on my own. And they're like, no, we can't do that. And I was like, I'll go back out there. I'll spend 40 days on my own. I'll film most of it, whatever you need me to do. I just need to finish my time, in the Amazon.
Right.
And still to this day, that's like, that kind of haunts me, because I know I would have finished, but what I didn't have is like just feeling that completion, that only thing you can really get by getting redemption and doing it. So
what are you going to do?
I'm going to have to get redemption at some point. Redemption will happen.
I like it. Do you think you married crazy?
He's a wild man.
Yeah, but not crazy. He's a
little crazy sometimes.
I still call passion. Brooke.
Okay, let's not confuse the two.
You got to be a little crazy.
You're a little wild,
you got to be a little
but
crazy.
it's like it's in your genetic DNA to be this wild, crazy man.
I've acknowledged it, I guess.
Yes, you have.
And Brooke is all for long hunting adventures. Like Brooke's first elk, for example, we walked miles in for her to harvest that elk. We got there, and I was like, hey, you shot it. You got to carry the head and cape. If anybody's ever carried a nice big 6x6 bull, head and cape, they've realized it's heavy.
Yep.
And Brooke's like, okay. And she starts carrying it. I was like, I was joking. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, no, you don't actually have to carry it, because she's tiny and the elk head's big. Mm-hmm. And, she carried that whole thing out. Like, any of that stuff, she will have no problem. But if I tell her that I want to sit and survive out with nothing and eat bugs, now she's like, but we don't have to. So
does that mean a couple's Naked and Afraid won't happen?
I would in a heartbeat. I don't know. Would you do it?
I would probably give it some consideration if I'm with you, but...
Naked?
I'd want some clothes. So we'd have to immediately get to hunting.
Okay. Have to make Brooke clothes.
Boom. So I like it.
It would be the ultimate test for a marriage, I'll tell you that much, because while you're out there, you get pretty hangry, you get pretty grumpy, sleep deprived, bug bit, stuff trying to bite your junk. And
it'd be pretty awesome.
It would be, a fantastic test for marriage, because while I'm out there, like, for example, Russell I was with, if I never talk to Russell again because we had a big fight, don't care,
But this is different.
But then you'd be like, I'm bringing this home. Like, this is working. Like, whatever fight we have now, I'm going to have to hear that later. They'll be like, hey, remember when we were in the jungle? And, you pulled
remember when you didn't get me clothes for 7 days?
You let that freaking snake bite me? Damn it.
Well, so you came home from that. You got yourself regrouped. You struggled through some aftermath, withdrawal crap, right?
Yep.
And so what'd you do to kind of get yourself regrouped? You had to kind of jump back into Extreme Instinct, right? Get back where you left off.
Oddly enough, I got back from the hospital, and Brooke actually had one more day left on her deer tag. And I got back from the hospital. My foot still looks like it's hamburger meat. It's all like decomposing. And I went on a hunt with Brooke, and that was kind of a nice, peaceful. I wore boots. Like,
you had clothes on?
I had clothes on.
Awesome.
It was awesome. But foot hurt, but it was like, it was like that. It was like, okay. I was like, like, even though that didn't happen, I was like, find myself back centered back into passion,
Right.
And Brooke got a beautiful buck, and then we had to carry it out, of course, so then it made an extra heavier load. But so then I went back to the grind, literally, and just started making more knives. That experience taught me a lot from what I need in gear, because when you have nothing really, what you do have is important, and it's just, it becomes everything. Like, so this is the knife I brought while I was out there. This knife's gone to Thailand with me. This knife has gone to down to the Amazon with me. And what you realize is this is everything. This becomes my shovel, my hammer, my pillow, my tool for skinning, my
saw,
my splinter extractor, my little of everything. And so it really taught me that every knife I make needs to be able to be that knife that you can rely your whole life on.
Right.
And ever since that, it's more of a spiritual thing I have, I think, with each and every item I make. It's because now I'm like, you know what? I'm like, if I had to survive right now, would I want this item with me? And everything I make, I'm like, hell yes, I would.
Right.
And it's
field tested.
You have to know that kind of feeling to really, feel that passionate about each item, I think.
Right.
Because it's a incredible feeling having like one thing,
one thing.
And it's like there's times.
I listened to a podcast on the way up here to Denver when we were driving up, and it was a guy who hurt himself really bad. He just went out for a quick little scout thing, and and he hurt himself to the point where he couldn't move. I mean, he basically tore his tendons to where his kneecap was gone and his leg was up here.
Yeah.
And so, he talked about how for all the lists of stuff that he always used to take, but on this trip he didn't take it.
Yeah.
Right? He didn't do this and he didn't do that. And now he does this and he does that and all these things, right?
Yeah.
But in the end, he ultimately says, my Garmin, my Reach, I can hit a button. Someone can come save me. And they talk about the fact that if you know that for $300 or $400 that you could have that peace of mind for your family, you could have communication, you could have SOS services, you could have all these things, then it's your responsibility to take that with you.
Yeah.
And you're like the total opposite of this podcast I listen to. It's like, I mean, that everything he said made sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, I agree. I bought one this year myself.
Yeah.
Right. I took a slip and went head first in this ravine and got these cracked my head open and got these staples in my head and all this stuff. And before I went back in the woods, it was the first thing me and my wife did. We're going to go buy you one of those things because you're going deeper, you're going further, you're doing all this stuff. But then I'm sitting here looking at you and thinking, that's all you took. That's all you take. And you could make a go of it.
Yeah. It gives you appreciation for everything you have to a large scale.
Right.
I mean, this is the same. This is a satchel that they have you wear. So, I mean, this and this is it.
I mean, ultimately, you have medical service, right?
Now you do.
Ultimately, you have life-saving medical service.
If you, as long as you can call to that medical service, then they'll be there within 10 minutes. And so, like at night, for example, there's a camera that watches you at night, but it's not a live feed camera that just records. So I always thought it was kind of funny because, they'd be like, what if you saw a jaguar in the night? Well, I'm like, well, it'd probably drag Russell off, and you guys would just see the footage the next day. Like you would have no idea. You'd have no idea. Just because you don't have a flashlight on that show. Mm-hmm. So there's times where like something's happening, and you're like, I don't know what's going on over there. I'm like, it's 10 feet away, but it's pitch dark. And you're like, this is all I got. I didn't get a flashlight. Like this is it. And so then you're just like, and you can take the camera, you can kind of look at the LCD screen, but you can't see more than like 10 feet.
Yeah. No, I've seen that camera that's in your guys' little shelter. And
yeah.
You could barely
illuminates anything.
Like the actual handheld camera, you really can't see any danger. So I've been bit by scorpions, for example, and big scorpions with big claws are not as dangerous. Little claws are super dangerous. Hospital time. Well, boom, scorpion hits you. You know it was a scorpion, and then you're like,
"Yeah, find the scorpion."
But now you can't see it because you don't have a flashlight. So you're like, I wonder if it had big claws or little claws. So you're just like, okay, I'm just going to wait for myself to have cardiac problems, and then I'll call the medic. If not, it must have had big claws.
I mean, it just seems.
And it's the most crazy concept you ever had. You hear a snake going through the grass or through the leaves under your bed, but you got to take a leak. And you're like, all right, I'm just going to put my feet down. And then you put your feet down and you're like, let's hope I don't step on a snake, you know. I mean, they're highly venomous snakes. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you'll walk, you hit a thorn, and you're like, was that a snake or a thorn? You know, like.
I mean, it just seems like a total mind game the whole time you're there, too, huh?
It is. It's really, when they talk about it being the most real reality show on TV, I mean, it's as real as you can get for the most part. There is a medical crew there, but after something happens,
right.
You know, there is a film crew there, but if say like. If a leopard, I would say if say you got a big cat coming at you, like jaguars coming at you. These guys are all from, you know, not to stereotype LA, but they are LA producers. They are not wilderness. They're not wilderness athletes.
They're not going to protect you.
They are going to run. I mean, if anything, I will have to protect one of them because they will be like, "Oh hell no, big cat, I'm out." You know, and they're just gonna. I mean, they're gonna head out of there. So there's no real safety in the numbers of the people that are there. But it's one of those things you have to just kind of accept where you're at.
Yep.
And for me, I try to make every day a little bit better.
And
that makes it like, okay, so if I start out and I only have these two things, when I end, I will have more stuff. I will have stuff I've made that helps in my survival that now I came out with more than I went in with.
Right.
And that means you're at least being innovative enough to, make something else.
That's right.
So
what's in the future for the two of you at this point? What's on the radar?
We're continuing to do more survival classes,
right?
To where we're actually teaching more of the wilderness survival skills.
And people can find you where for that kind of stuff.
So extremeinstinct.com.
Okay.
And that's the website. You'll see the knives. You'll see the survival classes. There's very few knives on there because a lot of stuff's custom made. So if you ever want like a custom made, one of a kind, knife or survival item, we do survival walking staff. That is actually completely hollow aircraft aluminum, designed to essentially kind of help you survive out in anything if you just have that staff with you. And then we're going to be actually offering some survival classes and bow fishing adventures here in Florida. As it goes to where if somebody wants to take a trip to go down to a little bit more of the tropical world, and see kind of the coastal survival aspects, then we can customize a trip on our brand new, custom boat that's down there just to take you out and kind of take you bow fishing. If you want to go spearing, if you want to go like learn how to survive right in the jungle life, it's all right there to get that. So you have the mountain side of Colorado, then we're going to bring that Florida side, that more of that swamps and Everglades action.
So you do some mountain survival stuff?
Oh yeah,
here in Colorado.
Yep, here a lot of mountain survival where we teach people, kind of. I tell them it's always a customized class because you can.
Tailor it.
Yeah, you could tailor it. I mean, if you want to learn, if you yourself want to come out there and you want to learn like how to make primitive fire the most, we'll make sure we cover that. But then if you want to say, you're like, I really want to learn how to like feed myself.
Oh,
and then you're gonna exactly. But then I'm gonna teach you how to use the primitive atlatl, how to make one, how to actually hunt with it, how to flint knap. Then before you know it, you take one of these classes. Then you go out in the woods, and no longer are you like, what happens if, like, what if I got stranded out here? Then after you take a class, you actually sit there and the mindset changes, and it's like, what if I got stuck out here? Not that big a deal,
right?
And it's a beautiful thing when you watch someone convert from being like, oh God, what if I got stuck, to what, I could get stuck.
So if they walk away from your class, you can see that confidence. You can see that education, that resonating thing, and then you accomplished what.
Yeah, definitely. That's
what they asked you. To do.
There's a lady who's taken the class a few times now, name's Molly, and Molly, when she first took the class, was like kind of overwhelmed by the amount of knowledge that I was throwing at her. She was just like, whoa. But Molly, by the end, actually was shooting carp with a primitive bow to where all of a sudden now you take Molly, you drop her off in the woods. Molly can not only just like keep herself alive, but Molly, I think, would actually be able to legitimately feed herself and whoever's around her.
Right.
And which was just, it's a beautiful thing to see that.
Yeah, it's like a light bulb went on her head, like probably after like the second and third time that she came out with us,
Yep.
and she just became so passionate and so interested, and she just wanted to learn more and more and more, and ask so many questions, and wonderful student.
Oh,
but
yeah.
it
It's-
just something clicked inside of her, and she was like, "This is amazing."
That's
And
pretty
she,
cool.
she actually, she said her job wouldn't let her, but she was like, she wants to do Naked and Afraid. And because now at this point, she's like, you know what? That's the ultimate test, really.
Right.
I mean, it's, and she, I don't think her job will let her do it, but she wants to. And that's an important part.
But
That's
she's
pretty
passing
cool.
some of that knowledge that she's learning on to her daughters.
Oh, yeah. It's,
When
There
they
you
go
go.
out on
There
their
you go.
adventures, and they're
Yeah.
learning from her, and so it's just that education that trickles down.
because we've lost a lot of that, unfortunately, as
Yeah.
people. You know, there's social media. There's too much technology in our day-to-day life.
Right.
So we lose that. Like, what if you don't have a battery? You know,
Right.
like what if that phone is just merely a brick? You know, then how can you
How then can you use your phone
yeah,
to benefit yourself, to feed
Exactly.
yourself and keep you warm?
Yeah, exactly. We've just, unfortunately, a lot of people have lost that, doing it. But then you go out and you just trigger something in there. We all have it.
Right.
But then once you teach you some like primitive traps, for example, well, then it's amazing watching someone's brain be like, "Phew," and all of a sudden they now have come up with a whole new trap mechanism, because that's something that they've done all their life. They just didn't know it.
Yeah. Human brain's crazy, huh?
It is.
You
It's
tap it,
Yep.
open it up, wake it up, whatever you want to call it, and it
Blooms,
just does
yep.
crazy things.
It's pretty neat to watch. That's why we do. That's why we do what we do at Extreme Instinct. Really, is
It's that experience.
to
You have to just get that hands-on experience in order to really understand it.
Right.
exactly.
Now, people can find you on Instagram.
Yep.
What social medias, I guess.
Social media, Twitter, extreme_instinct, and then in Facebook, Extreme Instinct. And then you can also find Matt as Survivalist Matt Wright, if you're interested in learning more about his survival adventures.
Yep.
Cool. Any shout-outs to anybody?
Oh, man.
Not that I know of.
Discovery,
Yeah,
Naked
come
and
on.
Afraid.
Yeah,
lots,
right?
and lots of
Yeah.
shout outs. It's one of those that, I mean, if we can't do what we do without fan support and just loyal customers through the years. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of people carrying my knives that they'll show me a picture of a knife and I was like, wow. They're like, that was 11 years ago. I was like,
That's cool.
it's all our customers and all our fans for sure is the biggest.
How about your
biggest support
heroes?
we have. Chuck Norris? No.
Your dad.
Your
Yeah,
dad.
definitely my dad.
There you go.
My dad always says the strongest man I ever met, because he's just legitimately, he's the epitome of everything I always wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And it was Father's Day a couple years ago that I was sitting there and I'm writing my dad a Father's Day letter. And I realized as I'm writing it that when I was a little kid, I'd stare at my dad's hands. And that was like watching the window of my dad's life. Like what has happened to my dad is on his hands somewhere. All the scars, all the,
That's
the
cool.
calluses. And I remember looking at my dad's hands as a little kid, like just methodically.
Huh.
And all of a sudden I'm writing this letter and I look at my hands and I'm like, damn it, I'm all scarred up. And I was like, holy hell. I was like, my hands have now turned, towards like where my dad's hands were.
Right.
And I had to write him a letter that day, thanking him for essentially molding into the person I am today. That, lets my hands now tell a story
Right.
of my epic, journeys.
And you
and,
use your hands for your craft and all
yeah,
that.
it's
It's
just-
awesome.
It's every part of your life can kind of go along with you. So it was
And you still have all of your
definitely.
fingers, even
Yep.
though you're making knives. So
It,
that's good.
As a knife maker, if you have all 10 fingers when you retire from knife making,
You're not going to be.
Good
then you're
shape.
doing pretty good.
You don't have a nickname called 9.5 or 8.5 or whatever.
It's real easy to lose fingers making knives.
I
and,
can imagine.
as a knife maker, they say never retire because it's a passion. You just do it forever. But a lot of knife makers out there missing a couple tips of their fingers and whole things, and it definitely can happen. I've gotten very good at giving myself stitches.
Yeah.
Because I would cut myself enough that I was like, this is not worth going to ER. So
Yeah.
I went out and found a stitches at a veterinary supply place. And I thought, hey, they give an animal stitches. I'll take some stitches. Well, what I did not know anything about was the size of the needle. First time I went to give myself stitches, I realized I have a horse-sized needle, and my skin is only so thick.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, note to self, need smaller needle. And but now it's routine. I mean, I've given myself stitches, darn near a dozen times now. Just stitch it back up. Normally, the cut itself is enough trauma that it doesn't actually hurt stitching yourself back up. So
yeah, it's all right.
It's not. Brooke looks at me like I'm crazy, and she helps me tie the knots, especially
Yeah,
when it's on my other hand.
I've only had to super glue myself. I've never had something bad enough that I
Yeah.
had to stitch myself. But
Count yourself lucky.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, as a chef, I mean, I've cut the ends of my thumbs off. I mean, I've got
chef,
plenty.
yeah.
I got plenty of scars all over
Oh,
me
yeah.
from little things, but they're all nicks.
Yeah.
They're not full on slices.
Yeah.
I guess. But
Yeah, the nicks are better. It's when knife making it's like working with the knife. I don't cut myself too often, but it's when you take a knife and you set it off to the side and it's sharp, and then before you
just,
know it, you reach over and,
yeah.
and it's like
yeah, my knife skills are pretty good. It's usually something weird.
it's the
Some
klutzy skills.
yeah, the
that
klutzy
come out.
skills. It's a good way to put it. Well, thanks so much, you
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
I appreciate all your time. We really went a long time, way longer than we thought we'd go. But you guys are extremely interesting and super passionate, and and your craft is a lost art. It's knife making is a
Yeah.
dying breed. Survival instinct. Your company that you guys are working on is, that stuff. Like you said, it's gone to the wayside, and
Yeah.
and you're. It's pretty cool that you're carrying on something that you're seeing the light bulbs come on in other people, and you're giving back, and doing something that not a lot of people are doing it. And if they are, I highly challenge that they're doing it with the same amount of passion and the same amount of grit and determination
Oh, yeah.
that you guys put into it.
That's what we try to teach them is the passion. That once you get the passion, you'll never survive. Never survive again. You'll always just figure out a way to thrive in anything.
Yeah.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you guys fit the mold of the wilderness attitude by far. I mean, you guys, you're full of it. And you're not full of shit. You're full of wilderness attitude, man. You got it going on. I think it's super cool. And I really appreciate you talking to us about your burro racing. That's just, that is
That's kick-ass.
I am
Lack of
gonna,
better word.
I am gonna go check that out.
Yeah, please do. If you go to Packburro, or actually I take that back, if you Google Western Packburro Association, you'll see the link to it, and you can learn all about it. It's fun stuff.
We gotta find some dates on that.
Yeah.
That'd be super
All
neat.
you have to do is follow Brooke on Facebook, and you will see a lot of videos of Farnsworth because that is her baby,
Yes.
Yeah, that's for sure.
and he thinks he's a human, so he makes his way in a lot of videos.
It's good. It's cute as can be.
Love him.
Once again, thanks so much for sharing
Oh, for sure.
your stuff and your trophy there that you got, Brooke, and all your stories of Naked and Afraid. It's just super crazy.
Well, thanks for
it
having
is.
us.
Yeah,
There'll be more adventures to come in the future for sure.
right on.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much. I appreciate
Definitely.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Wilderness Attitude. We really want to give a special shout out to Phil Mendoza and No Limits Archery. This is where we're at. He allowed us some space here in this new balcony. He's kind of finished up, and it's super kind of cool. The wood's pretty neat. So thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. Once again, wherever you're reaching us, whether it's through our website, wildernessattitude.com, or through any other social media place, please give us a review. Let us know if we're doing a good job. We really appreciate it. And subscribe to the YouTube channel. And here pretty soon we're going to be hitting some shows and throwing out some cool prizes and some other things going your way. So stay tuned. We appreciate it. Have a great week.